On behalf of all of us here at Sarmaya, it's a pleasure to welcome you all. Now coming to our speaker this evening, he brings together a deep-rooted love for nature, history, and traditional Indian art forms. Sudarshan Shaw is an artist and visual designer from Bhubaneswar. His artistic vision is shaped by vibrant colors, traditional knowledge, and the untamed beauty of the natural world. Sudarshan, an alumnus of NIFT, discovered his passion for wildlife during a visit to Ranthambore National Park. Since then, he's developed Folk Indica, a signature art style inspired by India's rich folk traditions and cultural heritage. His work revives the spirit of traditional art, echoing the voices of the land and its creatures. Sudarshan, over to you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm extremely grateful to see you all here, and I'm extremely honored to be presenting this little journey of mine, exploring India's wildlife, wildscapes, and Indian native art forms, and that too in a space which I can call is the sanctum of it, and as we all can say, it's also the sanctuary of it. So thank you so much, Sarmaya team, for having me here. As you can see, this is 1001 and counting. So 1001 tigers and counting. 1001, obviously you can guess, is an exaggerated number. Those who have encountered tigers, have had interactions with tigers, would know even a glimpse of a tiger in the wild is enough for you to, live a lifetime, right? And as an artist, I'll showcase my numerous interactions with the same species. The journey starts in Ranthambore. I went there for my graduation project 2016, and like everybody else, I was also in the lookout for a tiger, and I booked my safari. I went to a zone which was assigned to me, and obviously I didn't see a tiger, but I saw a lot of other animals such as sambar, spotted. This was my first formal introduction to the jungle, an exotic jungle. Before that, being born and brought up in Odisha, which still till today can boast of about 60-70% forest area, forest meant a very different thing to me over there. But here, this jungle was a bit exotic. So after the safari, obviously I was unsatisfied with not being able to see the tiger. But while doing the safari, the guide told me about a story about Machli the tigers, and how it was in the end of its years, and it was being fed by a team, and the story around it, and how it was helping Rajasthan government economically too. So that story was very fascinating to me, but because I was on a journey, on a tour for my graduation project, I had something to showcase to my college. I had to make something out of it. I started exploring the other day. So I went out to explore the city, Savai Madhopur, the small town, and I got to know about Dastakar, and I also got to know about the Ranthambore School of Art. And I ventured out to look for something which would excite me, because obviously I thought people were lying. There's no tiger in the forest. And that led me to Dastakar. And in Dastakar, I saw women stitching tigers onto textiles. And that was very interesting to me, because I had never seen a tiger in green color. I'd never seen a tiger in blue. I'd always imagined tiger to be in yellow and orange. So all of these sightings, a different kind of sightings of tigers and stories besides it, and this led me to make my graduation project. I did some products out of it, and I presented it in the school, in my college. And after a short period, I moved on from there. I went ahead with doing my UI UX journey, and all of a sudden, I heard a news, and it was that Machli is no more. This was few months after my graduation project, and I heard that. And all of a sudden I thought, why is it in news? Why is Machli in news? Before going to Ranthambore, I had not heard about the tiger, And suddenly people are talking about a tiger, and they are not just talking about the tiger as a species. They are talking about tiger as characteristics. Tigers having dignity, tigers having a story behind it, tigers with context. So this small news changed the whole course of my life, and I owe that to Ranthambore and Machli. In this slide, you can see the Ranthambore School of Art, people painting tigers. In a way, over the years, they have been painting tigers to sell it to public. But the tiger beside it, the tiger in orange, which is not so tiger-like, was more interesting to me in a certain way. And I thought of exploring that subject. I drew a tiger in many styles, and then I came across the regional folk style called Fard paintings of Rajasthan, and I saw tigers in that painting also. And what interested me was the stance of the tiger in the Fard paintings. The stance was very like the royal kings and emperors of Rajasthan, how they were very inviting to the people who used to visit those places. And the tiger had something about it in its stance that said that this tiger belongs to Rajasthan and not any other place. That means the particular art style had captured some sense of a tiger, which was quite different from the characteristic that is usually seen in the jungles. So, as I said, I got a new course to dive into, and then being in Delhi for the past 10 years, I started exploring jungles near Delhi. So the nearest jungle that I really liked was Jim Corbett National Park, and but because, as I said earlier, I wasn't satisfied with the tigers and its sightings in the wild, I ventured out to the periphery, because the interesting part from Ranthambore that I got was from outskirts of the jungle, which was where people, the natives, stayed. So they held the stories. So I ventured into the outskirts of Corbett National Park, which was a small village called Kyaari, and this was in Ramnagar, about 8 kilometers from Ramnagar. And I became quite frequent to the place. Interestingly, over here, the wild species in the jungles had a very different meaning. All the species that I saw in the jungle over here, be it the mammals, the birds, everybody had a story behind it. Everything had a context. So, this was the depiction that I drew at that time, thinking about the things that I saw, about the stories that people told me over there. This hornbill, of course, is drawn, as you can see, it's occupying about 50% of the canvas. This was my first hornbill sighting in the wild. And the guide over there told me, the villager, that this is the tiger of the sky. So again, scientifically, this is not possible. But when you add a context to it, by a certain perspective, it again visually seems very different and very interesting. So this was the depiction of the village with tiger slightly quite smaller as compared to the hornbill, because the hornbill sighting was extremely extraordinary for me, and this was the village setting that I captured. Again, because of the sightings and because of the stories behind it, I got an idea to explore more and more and learn about the interactions of people with the wild and also wild species among themselves. A tiger in isolation can be nothing, but a tiger in a forest is something. So that gave me an idea to come up with a series called My Picture of Divinity. In this series, I drew portraits of animals and their relationship with their surrounding. So these are two of them. This is my first hornbill sighting, where I saw the hornbill pair in the age-old forests of Corbett, and you can see in the womb of the tree there is the small bird, the hornbill chick, which is holding the seed which will plant the new forest of the future. So this relationship seemed very sacred to me. And the other side you can see the frogs mating, and obviously it has a relationship, something to do with water, something to do with monsoon. So this again was a relationship you could look forward to, and you have to understand the context behind it, because when you see frog in isolation, again it's just a frog. But when you associate it with something so large, so extraordinary, it gives a different meaning. Some other artworks from the same series. This is Owl and Darkness. Owl's relationship with darkness. We sometimes think how some species have adopted so well with darkness to night. Owl is an exception. It is not just adapted, it has absorbed the darkness within it. We feel that light allows us to see. But in terms of knowledge, we might have thought at some point of our time, on our lives that we don't know many things, we know a few. So when we open our eyes, we see a few things, but when we close our eyes, we see a lot of things. We imagine a lot of things. So that depiction of darkness, the relationship between the owl and darkness, as you can see, is depicted over here, is the whole universe inside the eyes of the owl. How the owl knows the unknowns, knows the darkness, which captures much more than what light can. Light is a very small essence of darkness. The other one is, in order to create a different characteristic of a vulture, the vulture which is necessarily given a bad name in our urban scape, but its relationship with death. Death is an eventuality, and vulture has got that kind of a strong relationship with death, and how it affects us human as well. We know the scientific reasons behind it. This was the depiction of the same. Another two. This is very interesting because all my life for 20 years of my life I had been in Odisha, but I was not aware about this phenomenon happening over there, which is the Arivada, the arrival of the turtles. And a few visits over there gave a very different meaning to the relationship that the turtle binds. Mythologically, we had heard the story of Samudra Manthan, in which the turtle was the center and it held the right and the wrong. Over here, you can see how the turtle binds the sea and the land. So the turtle over here is that significant factor, but in context to the earth. How its relationships that we see is in union and not in isolation. And the other one, the doctor of the forest, the woodpecker and the ailing tree. And the relationship that the tree has with the woodpecker is the relationship we have with our doctors when we are sick. So those kind of stories, when we tell to younger generation or children in school, they also create a different kind of perspective towards things. It doesn't necessarily have to be a wild animal, but it can be any element out there in front of us. Listening to the land. So after the Kyaari visits, several visits to Ranthambore and Corbett and outskirts, I started venturing out to different landscapes of India. So this is when I visited Melghat Tiger Reserve. I got a project over there, so I was lucky enough to be a week over there, and this was quite new to me. I was habituated with a kind of forest over there, but this forest came with a lot of colors. Colors that is generally not just seen with eyes, it also has to be felt with the other four senses as well. Because a jungle doesn't just give you light, scenery, a jungle also provides you feelings, textures, colors, and everything else that has to do with the five senses that we have got. So in terms of colors, you could see here in these pictures the kind of houses that the Koku tribes over there prepare for themselves, and the kind of activities that they do in the forest. And this is the core area of the forest. So I got to learn about the native people and the importance of native people. Why the forest in itself, even though it holds all the mysteries deep inside it, but we only come to know about it when all these stories spread out and are held at the periphery of the forest. So who are these people who are holding it? They are the native people. They have been for generations and generations. Since there have been the oldest of trees, they have been holding these stories. So this kind of information, this kind of facts, portrayals, brought a deep sense of gratitude in terms of what we have to see, what we must understand, and what we must value. And along with this, along with the favorable situations and colors and beauty of the forest, there are also things we must keep in mind, because there is obviously a balance, like we have in our urban spaces, the pros and cons of living in urban cities. There are pros and cons in forest. We have been colonized for a long period of time. So have our forests. Be it the lantana, as you can see here, the which pine trees in Himalayas. So the stories that the locals hold with regards to this was concerning to me, because this was a direct challenge to diversity that India holds. So these kind of stories, I thought, should also be brought forward so that people can discuss and understand that colonialism doesn't have to be limited to a political scenario as such. It can be within, it can be in our forest, it can be everywhere, and how we have to get out of it. This led me to follow the stories which are in the peripheries of the forest, which eventually led me to understand where these are documented, be it the books, be it the paintings. So when I ventured out in my cities and around the areas around forests, I got to see a lot of documentations, be it music, be it art, and be it dance. Art obviously attracted me a lot more, because I had that patience in me to hold it and look at it for a long period of time, and thus the keenness to understand the stories was significant. So I explored lots of stories that were documented in terms of folk art, and these stories, these documentations held stories which were not available in internet. As you can see here, the 9 tigers, portrayals of 9 tigers. These are not a very original creations. These tigers have been drawn in the wild. These tigers have been drawn over generations by the native people. But I thought to present it in a way to the world so that we understand that the tiger, the apex predator, is not just seen through one lens. This is how different lens by different people, we could see a tiger which is totally, unique in its own kind. A tiger in Rajasthan, which I said earlier, was so inviting, was so royal in its stature. And the tiger in Sundarban, which is aggressive, which has survival instinct so overpowering over it that it has that face on it. Right. So this portrayal led to this was accepted quite well by the people, and I thought Folk Indica, the folk art is accepted because of another reason, is that the masses of India have actually been understanding this language for generations, and not the artworks that have been brought all of a sudden in different art styles, in different colors not natural to us. So in order for us to understand situations, sceneries better, they had to be portrayed in a certain way, and folk art was a wonderful medium. Dwindling native art. I always thought nature and art are like two sisters. Both have been separated over time. As you can see, the earlier depictions, the documentations in terms of music, art, and dance have, over generations and over time, is disappearing in a rapid state. Right. So this concern also had to be highlighted in a certain way. And as you can see in the pictures, the left one is a music festival, a dance festival in the core forest of Melghat Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra. And this is from a Baiga house in Kanha National Park. How these little elements that held so much with them have been kept in isolation. And these dance programs and everything are now not so commonly celebrated, and these are left out to be just for public displays and public programs. If you look at the drums in the corner of the picture, those are made out of animal skins. Wild boar to be precise, and it had a wonderful story how the process with which the Baigas used to hunt those boars and used to apply those skins to make this drum, and how these drums then again they used to create a particular kind of noise, a particular kind of sound which attracted the wild boars itself. So this story is very, very, very fascinating to me. I thought to portray these beautiful festivals of our country into a small picture, into a small representation with various festivals and programs that happen in and around the country. So as you can see here, there's Waghoba in the center, there's Bagho Nacho that is done in Ganjam district of Odisha, in which they portray the interaction between human and tiger. So different art, different styles of portrayals, different colors, different textures, different textiles, all of these came together to show the relationship that we had once held very dear in relationship with the white. This again is a portrayal of our relationship with the elephant. As you can see here, there are three elephants. Three elephants, for me, the first one is the folk elephant that has been depicted in our folk art. The second one is the wild elephant, the elephant that has been guarding the jungles for agehood. And the third is the buddy elephant, our own elephant, the elephant which understands us, the elephant which we have brought into our relationships. So there are various ways in which we can understand a species, and it doesn't have to be one way that you describe a species and scientifically put it in paper so that there are no chances of understanding, giving a open mind to understand a species. So various kind of conflicts that could arise today, not just human encounters with the wildlife, but various other kinds, that their extinction, their population decline and everything, those could be understood by the type of relationship we had with them. So I'll come to my initial experiments with speaking the language of the land. What I mean by this is, initially when I came across 2 to 3 regional folk art, I was very intrigued by the style and the diversity in style that they portrayed. So as you can see in this picture over here, this is a Pattachitra painting of Odisha. And Pattachitra painting has for generations depicted gods and goddesses, and this is a must in a wall, on a wall in an Odia home. Almost all Odia homes have these paintings. I thought this is a good opportunity, this is a wonderful layout to portray something in it so that the story that I want to tell is well received by the people. So I came up with a map, the wildlife map of Odisha, in which I portrayed the highlights of the state, the lesser known species, the common species, so that people could relate well with it, the indigenous tribes and their behaviors and their interactions and relationship with the wild. Here, I had got many questions as to why I named it Wildlife Map of India and not Biodiversity Map of India. Am I trying to tell that these tribals are wild, like wild animals? In a way, I am. Because I feel wild, by definition, has been restricted. Wild to me is freedom. Wild could be taken in many other contexts, but the freedom context to me bears more weight. So this was the depiction of the same, and it obviously didn't limit it to my own state. Then I ventured into Andhra Pradesh, in which I explored Kalamkari's style of art, and I depicted the animals and the tribes and everything in that particular style. And this was commissioned by the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department. So it was very motivating to understand, to see that people actually think that this could, bring a mass connect, because obviously something was failing, something or the other was failing, and this is something which people could relate to. Again, Kalamkari is a very holy kind of depiction, that a representation that the people of Andhra Pradesh had been doing over generations. So I thought this would be a wonderful style. And again, this, as you can see, is the cat from the Kalighat paintings with a fish in its mouth. And what I did with that was to incorporate a wild animal into it. This is the fishing cat with a catfish in the mangrove land. So I represented it in a whole different, with a whole different story, but in this very similar style to that of Kalighat. Because Kalighat, over a certain period of time, in a way had got stagnant with the kind of images that was restricted to it, and how it was used to tell stories, other stories. So I thought this could be a way to bring this forward and take this art style forward also. Because I think these folk art styles are not just art styles. At a certain given point of time in history, those could have been practiced by different people. But for the time being, today, these are art schools in itself. We have got to learn a lot from these art styles and the forms and the depictions and what one thought while depicting the same. This is a very interesting artwork which was a result of questions that I asked to myself while I was studying folk art. This here is a Patachitra painting depicting the tiger boundary and what constitutes within the tiger boundary. The question that came to me was, why do most of the folk artists draw boundaries in their artworks? What is the significance of that and what does it hold? So they said that this is done in order to create a secure space for their painting. The boundary holds a certain pattern, certain motifs that helps a space, and then the artist has got that safe space in between these borders to draw something that holds dear to its heart. So here I thought would be a wonderful thing to depict a tiger boundary with what constitutes within a tiger boundary. So this is literally a tiger's journey around its territory, a tiger's way of walking, the activities that it does, and literally the things that happen inside the forest, inside the tiger's boundary. As you can see, the tiger's three essential activities that we have often seen in wildlife photography of a tiger, which is hunting, mating, and caring for the offsprings. And you can see the village, the rivers, and the trees and other wildlife within it. Sculpting Folk Indica. In a way, it was very tiring for me to, venture out and look for art styles. And not all art styles were so common and easy to access in order for me to understand what exactly can be picked out from it, can be studied and understood. And there were many art styles which were very limited in terms of, their portrayals and their, limitations in terms of availability in the internet or be it in the region also. So I thought this is a wonderful opportunity for me to create my own style, which would be inspired by the roots of the land, which would be inspired by the forms which we most relate to, which would be bold, which would also have the principles of the various folk art styles drawn in India, the principles such as the colors, the forms, the textures, and the stories. These four pillars helped me create this style which I called Folk Indica. Here you see some species in which I tried my best to capture the very characteristic of how the species are and how it can be drawn and how it can be brought together to form a style of its own. Cradled in the homeland. I'll go back to where I am from. I am from Odisha, a state which was named Utkala in history. Utkala, which literally translates to Uttamakala. Sculptures, paintings, mud art, clay art, stone carvings, all of these are even sustaining today. One can only imagine the kind of activities, the kind of status it would have got in its earlier years. I'm from a city which is also called the temple city of India, which is Bhubaneswar, housing more than 400 temples. And these temples are not limited to the gods and goddesses. These temples have history written all over. These temples have been a direct source of inspiration for me to understand the species, understand the relationship that is documented. Those are still on the temple walls. Those can still be studied. History doesn't have to be limited to the classrooms. History can be taught in temples, other monuments that is in and around your cities and urban landscape. It is only limited if we limit it. As you can see over here, these are some pictures of Odisha and also the tribes and the colors. One can only imagine what can be, in what way one can get inspiration from all of this. And the kind of uses of raw materials as well. As you can see in the left portion of the slide, there's the carving on the palm leaves, the palm manuscripts, which is called Tadapatachitra, which is very evidently drawn all over Odisha, and it is very holy to them as well. This art style has been holy in a way because you see uh, these uh, these canvases have long held stories of gods and goddesses who the people held dear to. Along with it, the palm leaves also have the species that were available during those time. People used to live in those jungles, a state which is still 65%, 70% tribal, which still holds the most number of tribes, group of tribal people in the country. Odisha has very well depicted the numerous species of trees that they encountered with, that they sustained with in those paintings as well as in those scripts. So I'll take you through a journey to my state, in which I thought Pattachitra and Folk Indica could well be collaborated and brought into a way of depicting my land. So I'll take you to a place which is very dear to me, which is the bird's heaven called Mangla Jodi, and I made a map of it. The map can be divided into two parts, as you can see over here, the left and the right. The right one has the species that we usually go to see in that space, but the left one is something which is as much important as the species that come from far over places. The left one has the story of the natives, the people who were earlier hunters and they have turned conservationists. The story of how the bows and arrows have become stagnant to such a point that it has become a safe haven for nests for birds to build on. The other painting, this one, is the depiction of Mahanadi River, the sacred river of Odisha. In the left portion of the artwork, you can see how from one point, Sihawa Hills, the small streams come from Chhattisgarh, and like the small fishes which turned out to be huge ones, they venture into Odisha, going through several spaces, traveling the whole land and living out from the Kalinga Sagar, which is also called the Bay of Bengal. The end portion or the front portion of the boat is drawn in the style of far-headed geese, because from the marine history of Odisha you will get to know that these voyages from the Mahanadi River, people used to take big large boats and large ships built with wooden structures, and they would venture out into other territories, be it Indonesia, Thailand, and all of these places, and in which they would carry their the culture, their tradition, their paintings, and everything that they held dear to. That is depicted over here. And this is a celebrity nowadays, the black tiger of Odisha, which is only found in Simlipal. This was commissioned by a science research lab in Bangalore, in which they wanted to depict this tiger in a style which people would relate to in Odisha, because this was a result of 13 years of research done by NCBS in Bangalore. And even though this species has become a celebrity on its own because of its look, but there's another story behind it, the story of DNA mixing. The 13 years of research also told how this is a small anomaly in the DNA which has resulted in the tiger having this recessive gene, and eventually that led to us having to see the black tigers that we see today. So each story that garners people's attention to it may not always have a positive aura behind it. There could be another story to it. So this is the depiction of the same, the black tiger and the common tiger, which is seen usually, with the species found all over the park, and how the dense canopy has also resulted in the denseness of color that has come over the skin of the tiger, and the Semel tree, on which name the national park is named, the Simlipal National Park, and the border, which is held very essential and dear to the Pattachitra painters, and it is what is depicted over here is the DNA strands, which is the thicker and thinner lines. Coming to Folk Indica Sanctuary. So the artworks that you saw earlier were limited to my own state, which I thought should come out to this world. Then I went on to explore other regions of India. Some of these are personal projects, some of these are commissioned by the people who truly believe that this can be a way of uh, educating masses, creating awareness. And this became a journey of creating biocultural maps of different protected areas of India. This is the first one, the Kanha Tiger Reserve. As you can see, a small portion of it is depicted, has a depiction of a map with some species, key species of that region, but the majority is the stories that bind the land together. The stories of the Baigas and the other tribes associated with the land, the stories of connections with them, the story of Lapsi Sikari, the story of Mogu. So various interactions and relationship over the years has Kanha as we see it today. And on the left we have stories of species which hold the land together. You can see a tiger with cat written over it, the Munna tiger, which is quite famous because of the writing on its head, which literally reads like a cat. And then there are Barasingha, of course. The Barasinghas were almost extinct at one point of time, and they were reintroduced in Kanha. So these stories I thought were very necessary to depict a particular landscape, because just maps and just species wouldn't do justice to the place. There are a lot of stories which is also essential for me in order to be depicting in Folk Indica style. So, coming to another map, the magical Melghat Tiger Reserve, as I explained to you earlier regarding the stories associated with it and how this is such an exceptional forest, not just because of the rich variety and the kind of tigers they have. They have huge tigers. The size of the tigers are huge. There may be some reason to it. But other than that, this is also famous for the re-emerging of the forest owlets. The forest owlets, for science, went extinct, and then they were seen again. So, a very interesting story from this land is, I went to a place and I found a person, the villager, whom I asked if how come this species was extinct and how come it re-emerged. So this guy said to me, it never went extinct. It's just that the people never came to look for it. We have always been seeing it. The biodiversity map of Arunachal Pradesh. Again, the key elements and the key stories that bind this wonderful land, rich in culture, variety of tribes leads to variety of colors, traditions, textures and everything. All of this depicted over here along with the common and some rare species, so that once you look at the map you get an idea of the color sense that also reflects through a map. Each state, each region has a color to show. Each state, each region has also got a texture and a feel to show. So that is also kept in mind while drawing this map in Folk Indica art style. Then we come to biodiversity map of Sundarbans. Sundarbans is a very different landscape, because when we hear about jungles, we have a very positive, very beautiful, scenes in our mind in terms of the dense forests, in terms of the biodiversity. Sundarban has a kind of, I would like to say, a kind of negative vibe attached because of the stories that have been circulating around the situations and the events that take place in Sundarbans. Why are species over there aggressive? This has a scientific answer to it, obviously. This is the salinity of water, which makes it very difficult for the species to survive in that region, and they have to fight hard in order to survive. So this depiction over here, along with showcasing the behavior of the animals, which is depicted over here in terms of the big crocodile, which also acts like a big island floating in the river Ganges, and there are sort of islands with sort of stories attached to it. And also I thought it was important to let people know the struggles that the natives of that region also have to go through in order to live with the species which is aggressive again. So this kind of conflict, this kind of tension, but still this land has been surviving. So we owe that value to this land, and we must aim to understand it better. So as when we put our definitions of jungles, when we put the definitions of conservation to a such piece of land, we'll also have to look into details of the other kind of land that is present in our country, so as to take a different approach towards it, right? And then the biodiversity map of Kalahandi, which is a tribal and cultural rich district in Odisha. The Mukundra Hill Tiger Reserve. This is a very challenging map because this is adjacent to Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. This map, other than depicting itself, also tells a story of how we are going ahead with our approach to wildlife and with our approach to the way we hold our wildscapes. Ranthambore, in a way, today has become kind of a zoo because owing to the number of tigers, the limited land, and the preparation of boundaries and limiting in terms of building peripheries and people's settlements and all of these is leading tigers to venture out to different territories, right? Which has led to the creation of this new space, new protected land, which is called Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve. I was very fortunate to have seen that exact place where, fortunate in the sense that I saw the place where Broken Tail the tiger got crushed under the train in 2003, I guess. And in 2003, I think I had heard something that sort, and I had in mind. I had seen the documentary as well, which was quite emotional during that time. And to be able to see the space which is still intact, but the situation over there is still the same. So that also leads us to question the same. Thus, the depiction of those activities are also mentioned over here, so that when you see the map, you not just limit yourself to understanding what all is available, but what all necessary steps can be taken to make it a livable space for our wildlife also. Then Banerghatta Biological Park. I usually don't take up zoos or parks that are kind of man-made, but this was very essential because we cannot neglect the fact that urban scapes are rising and there is a limitation to this wildscapes in a country. So if we ignore that portion, we'll be doing injustice to the land itself. So what I thought was, it was essential to showcase this in a style which people understood, which is as holy as temples are for them. So over here you can see the structure of the map is drawn in the South Indian Dravidian style of architecture, and the landscape is depicted in the same. The two strong pillars of the biodiversity map are the protectors, the forest department, the guards, the local people over there, and on the other side, the native people, the tribes, the Vocaligas and other tribes that are over there, and they are the two strong pillars which holds the land so firm that the elephant family can travel through those places. Then we come to Kaziranga. Again, the four very, very essential stories that I thought had to be shown, and along with the species and along with the challenges that we have in that region. Rewilding storytelling and visual expression. Some stories in a duration of time have faded. Some stories, certain elements of some stories which were very well practiced in a certain point of time have changed meaning. Some stories have left out some animals from it. Some stories have left out humans from it. So it was very important to hold back those stories together so that people again try to understand what was the kind of relationship we had. This led me to a commission project by WCS, which was to study the interaction of humans and tigers in Indian landscape, and not just limiting to a certain region of the country, but also diversifying in terms of geographically diversifying the stories. The first one is the Idu Mishmi tribe and the tigers, the story of how they are brothers and they hunt together. The second one is from fields of Uttarakhand, where the woman working on the field at a certain given point of time actually merges with the tiger, because the tiger stays on the field too. There are images where we can see the women working and the tiger just strolling by like a true gentleman. So that depiction was very necessary for me. The third one is the tiger as grandfather in Tamil Nadu. The Tamil Nadu folklore, the tiger, as you can see over here, is a bit older, and the children are listening to it, and they have coconuts, as donations, as kind of a reverence to the tigers, so that they tell more stories from their lives to the smaller children. And over here is a depiction very holy to my land, Odisha, which is Nabagunjara, in which the people have this depicted, represented 9 different kinds of animals, and one of them is the human hand, and how this forms a jungle. Even today, this is very important depiction of the cultural value that the state holds, and even this today is kind of portrayed in the form of visual representation of the state, be it logo, be it branding or anything. And then we have the tiger as a hill. The tiger so massive in some cultures that they consider the hills to be the tigers who are safeguarding them. And then we have the beautiful Sundarbans, wherein the concrete tigers and the lions that hold the Banvivi gates also has an actual tiger laying right beside it, which is also guarding the beautiful forests. Then we come to the series of elephants. Tiger and elephants have well been depicted over everywhere in our country, in each of the folk art styles, be it music, art or dance. They have been depicted in textiles and everywhere. So after the tiger we had our elephants, and this was a very tricky subject because we have 2 extreme situations of the depictions of elephants and the kind of reverence we have for them. One is Lord Ganesha, the direct representation and the kind of reverence we have for Lord Ganesh, and the other we see in today's scenario what kind of activities have been happening all over the country, and what that has resulted to such a beautiful creature being, getting depleted, reduced to something which is totally against the aura that it has. So this series was to understand the timeline of the species in our land. The first one is the elephants in fights, the elephant used by the kings and kingdoms, how they were palaces and they were forts into itself. Once the elephant used to puncture the crown, it was like a fort built. And the second one is the kind of elephant which was inspired by animism, in which the elephants are depicted in Gond art as flying elephants. They told that they have been flying over the years, and they have been depicted in their art styles, they have been depicted in the dances. Well, I think Mahua has a lot to do with it. I mean, imagination as well as a bit of hallucination is required. But essentially, this is a very strong way of visualizing something, a very different perspective towards seeing an animal so heavy and to have such large ears that it can fly in the sky. This is a beautiful depiction that has been depicted in the art styles of Gond. And then we come to Ganesha, Lord Ganesha, how he is the animal as well as the Lord into himself. The shadow is the animal. And then how in our country we have a reverence to the dead as well. How we saw the story of Machli, a tiger so magnanimous that the story of the tiger made it kind of a human-like situation that we eventually brought it into, and we gave it a state funeral, the kind of reverence that we give particularly in our culture. So even there are certain cultures that do the same with elephants. Then there is a very, very common depiction of the elephants in Thanka style in northern belt of India, particularly in the Himalayas, in which elephants are the pathway to heaven. They are so large, they create such beautiful path when they go that it leads to heaven. This is one of the kind of representations that they have. So I tried to show how an elephant, when it passes through a particular place, particular region, it has different challenges and activities going on. So that is depicted over here. And this last one is the elephant in relationship with humans, the tribes, the natives. How elephants have been helping humans all over the years. Along with the rivers that we have, elephant has always been that buddy, that character for that beautiful relationship of mahots and the elephants is depicted over here. I bring you back to my state, Odisha, wherein I wanted to use Folk Indica, the art style, in showcasing some species which are going through a critical time in this space, and I wanted to depict it and give it a representation which would make people understand the kind of relationship that we have today with it. So this is a depiction of a pangolin, and one of the breeding centers has come along so that people get to know that it's a species which is highly trafficked in the world. I think the most trafficked animal in the world, and what is necessary, what is its food, what is the environment that it lives in, and it can be used in educating the children as well. And then we come to ghadiyals, the beautiful ghadiyals. I'm proud enough to say that Odisha is the only state in our country where we have all the three crocodilian species: the ghadiyals, the muggers, and the estuarine crocodiles, the salties. So over here, it is again, I have taken the layout of a Patachitra painting in which the four corners are telling four different stories of the species and how humans, even though in a way have been depleting the habitats, also there are some humans who have been helping the species come back in the wild. So that is the depiction over here. It's obviously drawn in Folk Indica art style with a beautiful fish in its mouth. And the kind of landscape that it is found in Odisha. On the left you can see the small hillocks of Satkoshia National Park and the deep gorges that we have in which the species thrive. This also tells a story of how the water over here is pure, it's hygienic for use, and how important, how key this species in terms of portrayal of a river ecosystem as well. And we know how important the rivers are. So it is directly linked to our survival. It's just not linked to the survival of a particular species, but the conservation is about us more than any other being. Then the otter, it's found in small nooks and corners and crates of Odisha, and the parakeets. Parakeets again a highly trafficked bird in Odisha, and it is irony that it has held one of the most revered spaces in our culture. Two parakeets called Jiva and I'm forgetting the other name. So these two parakeets have been seen sitting over the Rath in the chariots, the three chariots that the annual Rath Yatra is in. So these parakeets hold such a revered space over there, and still they are the most trafficked bird in our state. Then we come to hyenas, who have got the bad name, and this is again a depiction of hyenas from the Astaranga forests in Odisha. Borrowing from animism. Perspectives of drawing and representing certain things are not limited to a certain style or a way of portrayal. Imagination knows no bounds. I owe a lot of credit. I think the whole credit goes to Gond art and the people from central Indian forests who still continue to make this art, and the kind of principle that they held even today while portraying the species. Animism, in which they believe that every living being is, every element that you see on earth is a living being, be it stones, be it walls, everything. And in a way, scientifically, it is true also. If you think about it, human body is a mix of chemicals and we react to certain things. So is a stone. A stone is also chemicals, and it is also reacting to earth, water, sand, everything. So in a way, it is also living. So this kind of principles have led these tribes to depict whatever they see in the wild, whatever they imagine, and the scope of imagination also increases when you have this perspective of imagining everything as living beings. Then the limitation, disappears. So I did a book for the same, with the same principle, in which the hillocks are the giant rhinos and the tiger is the rising sun. So these are 8 pages depicting the same. This is inspired obviously by the Gond art style. And then seeing the forest as a whole and not one species in particular in isolation. Here the gaur, the tiger, the barasingha, the people, all have been accumulated into one space. All have shared this space. It is not individual again. it is union and not in isolation. Art in context, weather and culture sensitive. We have always imagined art to be a bit old in its approach, folk arts in particular. They have a certain limitations in terms of portrayals, in terms of spreading awareness. But I think with time, people have started believing its significance in modern depictions as well. Being a designer myself, I've got briefs in which they wanted their branding, the packaging to be done in a style in which people can perceive better, people can understand better. So I added that folk indica element of touch into these depictions as well. As you can see over here, the logos. The other one is the Department of Forest Arunachal Pradesh logo, in which the tribal elements from the walls and the wooden bars that have been placed over in the tribal houses, those elements have been taken to draw the logo, in which the 4 state symbols have been merged together to form the logo. Then the use of peacocks and the darwajas and everything. All of these forms, in a way, there could be certain portrayals, certain ways of portrayals, use of colors, but it's always a process that's going on, and it's good to know. It's a positive approach to it, so that you can create your own unique identity. The left one is the depiction of fishing cat and its habitat with humans involved, and this is done for a packaging of a rice brand. This is from Chilika, the largest brackish water lake in India, and this is packaging done for that. And this is the depiction of the kind of influence this invasive species have on our planet, in our wildscapes, the lantanas, and how everything goes under it once it comes above. So this has been featured in the magazine. Then we come to recalibrating the compass for future. This workshop that I did 2 years back was with the tribal kids and tribal people of a small town called Sendwa. The irony is that these people over generations had been drawing Gond art, had been depicting their stories in that particular styles, have for generations been saying their own stories in that style. And I was called to interact with them in order to reintroduce the same Gond art to them again. So it was very challenging to ask them to draw in a style which they had kept sustained for so long, but in some particular point of time, in point of history, they left it because of their own survival and the challenges that they faced. And overall, the idea was not to get everyone to get drawing, but even if you could manage to get 5% of all those people to draw those stories, they had some creative juices in them, the depiction styles, and I'm happy to share the news that more than 10% actually are still carrying it forward, and the department is helping them with it. The portrayals of the jungles, they're selling their art prints, they're telling the stories again. So this was from the workshop in Sendwa. You can see a cheetah over here, drawn by the people over there, because the cheetah's introduction story was highlighted during that time, and they wanted to draw it, and they were asking for cheetahs to be introduced in their villages. So yeah, this was a depiction of the same. These are the people. This led to me introducing a kind of a art initiative which was Jan Van Chitran. The art that comes from the forest is for the forests. So the stories that the people have from the forest, that is near and dear to them, and that they want to tell to the people in the outside world, could come through this initiative, and this initiative was helped to promote their stories, to promote their representation depictions in their art styles. So this was a very small, unending journey of mine through the tribal landscape, through the wild landscapes in our country. Forests not only hold the land, hold the wild animals together. For me, they hold the folk art together as well. These are sacred spaces not just for wild animals, These are sacred spaces that hold the stories, that hold the very basic principles of surviving and sustaining on this planet. Thank you so much.
Subscribe to Sarmaya and be a part of the stories and conversations around art, history, and culture.